I really believe that sleep is the CEO of wellness.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today's talk is going to be about
Sleep is the number one performance-enhancing drug.
sleep.
Many people think that sleep is a waste of time.
Without sleep, our memory consolidation doesn't happen. Disease occurs without sleep.
During the World War, there was an experiment carried out on the prisoners where they kept them awake. And they tried to look at how their body changes and the physiology changes with time. Many died, many became psychotic and lost their mental balance.
You know, some neuroscientists call being awake low-grade brain damage.
Recently, we had a millionaire from India who said, "Oh, I sleep only 4 hours." And
If I was to sleep for 4 hours tonight, I know my anti-cancerous cells would drop by 70% tonight. If we're looking at Steve Jobs, they, were very famous to say, "I don't sleep."
yes,
Steve Jobs,
answer.
he,
Some fascinating facts about sleep phenomena. Sleepwalking. Why do people sleepwalk? Hi. Before we begin, 90% of you haven't subscribed yet. These episodes do take time and effort to make. And if you found any value here, I would truly appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. It helps reach more people like you. Thank you. Julie, welcome to Scrubs and Suits.
thank you so much.
And I would like to ask you a question before we start. If you had to describe sleep in just one sentence, that's all you've got, what would that be?
I really believe that sleep is the CEO of wellness. That's it.
See, but we don't talk about it within the framework of wellness usually. I know that it is, but why do you think people don't emphasize on it so much, unlike fitness or diet?
I think it's because it's not cool and it's not sexy. I think that's what it is. But, we talk about the 3 pillars of health.
Yes.
And we talk about, exercise and food. But actually, the only thing that is more important than sleep is breathing. That's it. If it doesn't matter if you've got the best and most expensive and organic diet in the world, if you've not slept well, then the body isn't going to absorb those nutrients.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if that's your starting sentence, I think we are in for a treat for the rest of the podcast. Right. Let's look at the big picture of sleep. And a very basic question that comes to my mind is, why do humans even need sleep for that matter? And as we know, nature kind of with time, as time evolves, it tends to trim out inefficiencies. And many people think that sleep is a waste of time. So why hasn't nature reduced it? And we all still sleep 8 to 9 hours every night.
Now, again, if we're looking at the science, we're not sure. In all honesty, we're not sure why sleep is important. That's the first thing. However, over the years, over the hundreds of years, and now with technology, unfortunately, but it has its benefits, it's really showing us that without sleep, our memory consolidation doesn't happen. Disease occurs without sleep. And we know that we spend 1/3 of our life asleep. Now, what that means, for example, I've been married for 40 years to my lovely husband, which means that for approximately 13 years of our 40 years of marriage. That has been kept sleeping. Or if you think about it, if I live till I'm 90, then I will have spent 32 years asleep of that 90 years. So sleep absolutely from nature has a very important function. And we cannot deny that.
Yeah. And about 60 years ago, during the World War, there was an experiment carried out, an unethical experiment where people were in prison and they did an experiment on the prisoners where they kept them awake, either through light, torture, many things. And they tried to look at how their body changes and the physiology changes with time. And of course, many died, many became psychotic and lost their mental balance. So there is enough and more evidence there to say that if you stay awake longer, the more impairment of your mental status you'll have. And of course, nobody after that has gone on to that level of experimenting. But we have seen this. If I stay awake for one night, I won't remember my bank account password or whatever. You just tend to be completely lost in your memory. So thank you. So it's clearly not a wasted time. There must be a reason why. And some people call it housekeeping of the brain, right?
It is, it absolutely is. And what's really fascinating here is that if we're looking at the housekeeping, it's almost like when we go to sleep at night, it's almost like a washing machine, our dishwasher is turned on, the cycle. So you put your dirty plates in the dishwasher, you put the cycle on, and then when that cycle is finished, we have sparkling clean plates. That's exactly what happens
nice
to our
analogy.
brain.
Never
It's
thought of it that
exactly,
way.
it is. And that's because, and what's really fascinating, what I get so excited about is, there is more and more research now that is showing us about how things are changing when it comes to sleep and, again, technology. So, for example, only in 2012 were the lymphatic system, the drainage, it was only 2012 that was discovered.
Yes.
So we knew before that we have the drainage system in the body, which is the lymphatic system. We know that. But only in 2012 was it discovered that the brain itself has its own system of drainage. And that's that whole system of clearing out the toxins of the day. Some neuroscientists call being awake low-grade brain damage. That's what they actually call it, because the lymphatic system then is put into place.
Some people say life is something you do when you're not asleep.
Yeah. And that's like, for example, we know that some parts of the brain are up to 30% more active when we are sleeping than when we are awake, which is incredible.
So many people say sleep is a passive act. It's not. There
Not
are
at
many
all.
things happening in our physiology, in our body.
Yeah. It's the complete opposite of a passive act.
You know what Margaret Thatcher said about
I
sleep?
do.
It's a very famous sentence. What she said, it's for wimps, right? She said, it was like shocking. This was 70s. So things have changed since then, but still the awareness of the importance of sleep is not widespread.
I mean, throughout history, we've had a different relationship with sleep. Aristotle talked about the link between sleep and mental health. Aristotle.
Yes.
If we talk about Shakespeare, Hamlet makes reference to the importance of sleep. And then Edison came along,
Yes.
introduction of the light bulb,
Yes.
and he was the person to say sleep is a waste of time.
Yes. That's where it almost started.
It was, which is completely untrue.
Dreaming. What is the fascinating fact about dreaming that people overlook? Just tell me, one, why do people dream? And does it help in any way to consolidate our memories or our well-being? Can you talk to us about that?
There is so much about dreaming.
Yeah.
But what dreaming does, it contextualizes what has happened throughout the day. And this is what makes us different as humans to the computer or to AI even. Because we bring all those different strands that we have learned throughout the day, and we make sense of what has just happened. And that's what dreaming does. It contextualizes, but it also is an emotional therapy session, a free emotional therapy session, because within that dreaming experience, we know that helps with our emotional regulation. If we don't get sufficient rapid eye movement, which is where the dreaming happens, although again, there's information that isn't always available. We are told, lots of literature is saying that we only dream in our
Early hours of morning.
But that's not true.
That's
We can still dream in the deep sleep. It's not as much and it's not as common, but we still can dream in that deep sleep. But it is contextualizing and it's building our emotional regulation.
But tell me, why is this? Like when I was a teenager, I remembered every night I had a dream and I could remember the next day in the morning, oh, this is what happened. It's probably decades now since I've dreamt. I mean, I'm almost 50 now and I don't remember dreaming. Is that because my REM sleep has shortened and reduced with age?
There's very rarely one single component, such as your REM sleep has reduced. Now, interestingly, when babies are first born, they have many, many, many sleep spindles. And again, this is, which is part of the stage 2 of the sleep cycle. And again, so exciting because with the sleep spindles, this is quite a new discovery as well. Sleep spindles happen in stage 2, and these sleep spindles are in abundance at birth. And then as we age, unfortunately,
Reduces.
this sleep spindles and sleep spindles are very much down to different types of memory. So sleep spindles are responsible, for example, for declarative memory, so different types of memory. as opposed to non-declarative memory. So this is one of the reasons why as we age, we don't remember as much, because those sleep spindles are not in abundance, but it's also due to the fact that we have so much going on in our brain.
For the sake of the audience that are listening to us, can you give us an idiot's guide of what sleep structure is? So in what phases do we go from, say, non-REM to REM? Yeah, just describe that.
So for an adult, our one sleep cycle is approximately 90 minutes. And of course, we all have slight variations. Mine might be 95, whereas yours might be 90-minute sleep cycle. So there's always a variation. Approximately 90 minutes. And that is then separated into 4 to 5 phases. Now, I'm saying 4 to 5 because it depends on which neuroscientist you're actually referring to.
Yes.
But it's stage 1 is that really nice, light, non-REM sleep. But all the phases within that one sleep cycle are of benefit. It's not that if I can get stage 3 more, let me get that and forget about the REM. Each one of these phases are really important. So phase 1, light sleep. Stage 2 is the sleep spindles, still in light sleep, but this is where, our heart rate is dropping. The
relaxation
the
phase
relaxation,
comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's when you have these sleep spindles, which is that burst of energy.
Yes.
For memory.
Yeah.
Then as we come out of stage 2, we cross into stage 3 and 4, which is the deep sleep. Now,
but we are still in non-REM. We are in
Yes.
non-REM sleep,
Yeah.
the first 4 stages.
Yes. And deep sleep, stages 3 and 4, this is where the human growth hormone is released. This is where our immune system is being built. This is where different kinds of memory is happening. And then as we come out of that deep sleep, now we move into the REM sleep, our rapid eye movement, and that's where the dreams and the memory is happening.
Yes.
So every 90 minutes, each adult is going into a sleep cycle and then coming out and then carrying on into the next, depending on the environment.
But there is always, as we go through the cycles, there's a period of awakening as well, isn't it? Between every cycle, you briefly wake up, which you don't remember next day in the morning. But
and do you know why that is? Again, I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
because you were cavemen.
Exactly.
Yeah, for safety.
Yeah. But everyone I have met when it comes to sleep will comment about why is it that right before they go to sleep, they get this real burst of energy and they, it's almost like a second wind, and we'll see it much more clearly in our children.
Yes.
But that's because from an evolutionary perspective, going into our night sleep, it did render us more vulnerable to prey. Right. And so right before we go to sleep, back in, across the plains of Africa, for example, we needed to make sure that there was no saber-toothed tiger lurking. So the brain went on high alert just to check that everything was safe.
Yes.
Now, again, we couldn't sleep for 5 to 7 hours. So that's why, exactly as you're saying, that's why those sleep cycles of 90 minutes, brief wake up, check, there's no saber-toothed tiger. And of course, our saber-toothed tiger in the 21st century, unfortunately, technology,
yes.
Gone to the next. So that's why.
That's interesting for everybody, I'm sure. Now, there's a concept which I felt briefly, something called sleep paralysis. I'm not sure whether you've experienced it yourself or you've had people coming and explaining that to you. So where the REM sleep, which concentrates around the early morning hours, your body is completely relaxed, but your mind is awake. We call this paradoxical sleep. Yeah. And that's where you have a phase where you wake up, but you can't move your body. It's like you're paralyzed. You can feel it. Yeah. And that's called sleep paralysis. Yes. And that's really scary. And I've had few teenagers who've experienced this coming and giving me this vivid explanation of what's happened to them. Do you have that experience of dealing with this within your clientele?
It's much more prevalent. I've experienced with teenagers. And my understanding here is because with the teenage brain, it is being constructed. Like a construction is going on within the brain as it changes from the child brain to moving more towards that completely finished growth.
The frontal lobe develops over time.
That's what it is more. And also, it's much more anxiety related. And, for teenagers now, it's really hard for teenagers. They have a much more stressful time than any teenagers throughout history. So I think that's where I've seen it most.
We talked about this briefly, but let's just make it a little bit of formal discussion. So where does sleep stand when we compare diet and exercise, which are like the poster boys of well-being? And then when we talk about sleep, nobody actually discusses it. But I think sleep is, if not more important, at least as important as the other two, right? So how do you communicate this message to your clients when you discuss this?
So I think the most important thing with anything that we want to communicate and guide our clients, it's very much about this has to be collaborative. And I know if I'm going to be dogmatic about something, then I will immediately lose my client. So it's really about understanding how it's going to benefit them and really recognizing within them. So, for example, if I have a teenager and a teenager is really struggling with their sleep and he might have some acne, and I will say to them, if you get better sleep, I know that your acne is going to improve because that's one of the benefits of sleep. So it's really important that I can communicate how it is going to benefit overall. Now, again, when we're looking at food and exercise, even if, I had a teenager from New Zealand contact me recently, which I just think was incredible. So he booked himself a discovery call, and his question to me was, if I am taking my exercise at 5 o'clock in the morning before school, is this having a negative impact? Which I just think how he had the ability, and I really applauded him. And I was to say, again, it's all about balance. So I didn't want him to stop doing exercise, but I did want him to know the importance of his sleep, including the rapid eye movement, how important it was in his learning. And so he was doing 5 days a week. I've asked him to bring it down to 3 days a week and get that extra sleep to see how much better he felt. So it's all about looking at each one of our clients, everyone that we're dealing with as unique human beings, in that our sleep is different to everyone, but not that different.
I have this discussion with school principals, schools authorities when I give a talk at schools, is that when a child crosses 12, the brain changes in a big way, and sleep requirement changes, their metabolism changes. And teenagers, generally, they're not just excessively tired and sleepy. That's what their body needs. Their body needs 10, 11, 12 hours of sleep sometimes. But the problem here is you have early morning schools. You have, say, a sports session for them before school. So my 16-year-old wakes up at 5 in the morning. He sleeps at 9. So he gets, on a good day, he gets 8 hours of sleep. That's no way sufficient for a teenager to thrive.
No.
Schools don't understand this.
No.
And one of my suggestions was, why don't you make high schoolers start school at 10 or 11 and then push it till, say, 5 in the evening, rather than starting them early? But it's a huge cultural change that needs to come in, I think.
But it's not just a cultural change, it's across the world.
The world,
You know, Dr. Mary Cascadden, now she was the researcher that actually discovered that teenagers' biological clock shifts dramatically from approximately the age of 12.
Yeah.
Although I think now it's actually happening earlier. I think
Because
puberty,
of the pubertal changes.
Yeah, but so I was able to bring her over here from America, from Brown, to lecture at a number of schools and universities here. And she's very much part of the movement of trying to push timings of children to be later, because the studies are really clear. So, for example, there was some research that was carried out in California about 5 years ago now, and they looked at the students who were the top students within their year, and their SATs was, I don't know, say something like 116. They changed the timing to starting later by 1 hour. So not
just
that,
1 hour.
just 1 hour. And their SATs increased by over 10%.
Wow.
Now, that's the difference between going to an Ivy League university or not. But also, what was very interesting within that study, something happened which was a big surprise, in that the road traffic accidents of teenagers dropped by 70%. I mean, that's not, if we look at ABS, the
Because they drive at 17 now, I think, in the US.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But if you look at the brake system when it was first introduced, the ABS.
Monitoring the eye movements. And,
Yep. And it was increased, decreased the number of accidents by 20 to 25%. And this was revolutionary.
Yes.
But if we changed the hour of the children for schooling and it dropped the car accidents by 70%.
There's no debate in this, I think.
No.
It's just that the authorities need to understand they have to do something about teenagers, especially with their school timings.
Yeah.
Let's tackle the big myth now, which is 8-hour number. So everybody says, okay, 8 hours is a magic number. And that's what even mattress companies sell their mattresses with, 8 hours of good sleep. But we know that with age, your requirement of sleep changes, your installment of sleep changes from neonate to an adult.
It doesn't change with age.
So tell me about that. So people think that a newborn baby has to have 8 naps, whereas an adult needs to have a consolidated one single sleep, and so forth. Just tell me.
Okay, so that's quite different in terms of with a newborn and with a toddler, because their brain is growing and changing. Now, it has been said for many, many years, but thankfully that information is beginning to change now because it is based on evidence. But it has been said as we age, we need less sleep. That is not true at all. Our sleep definitely changes. So we do get less deep sleep, which is why our memory is impacted. And of course, that goes back to the sleep spindles and the deeper sleep. So it's not that as we age, we need less sleep. It's much more about the quality of our sleep as opposed to the hours with the sleeping that we need. So that's really important to recognize.
Can you just elaborate on that? So when I say a newborn sleeps in 8 installments, each being 1 hour or 2 hours, so they sleep 16 hours in a 24-hour period, whereas we do 8 hours sleep. Why is that not different?
Because, so when our babies are first born, their sleep cycle is approximately 45 to 50 minutes long, approximately, as a newborn. Interestingly, when our babies are first born, they actually arrive in this world on a 25-hour-ish cycle, not 24 hours. And then gradually with feeding and the light.
The circadian rhythm you're talking about?
Yes, when they are first born.
Yeah.
And that takes 10 days to 2 weeks, and now they're on that 24-hour sleep cycle. But the same, we as humans, our sleep cycle is not 24 hours, it's 24 hours and a little bit. And that, with jet lag and different things, that's how that can be. Going back to our newborn, so that's approximately 45 to 50 minutes, approximately.
As opposed to 90 minutes
As opposed to 90 minutes. Then, somewhere around 4 months, there is a huge cognitive leap. And everyone talks about this big sleep regression at 4 months. It's not a sleep regression. It's actually a progression. Because we know if you were to take a head circumference, and you would be an absolute authority, an expert on this, if we were to measure the head circumference of our babies at birth, and then every month measure their head circumference for that first year, you would then see that at 4 months approximately, the skull would have expanded more at that time than any other time.
Proportionally.
Yeah. So that's what's happening there. But that's where now there's a change in the sleep cycle of our babies. And the baby's sleep cycle now changes because from birth to approximately 4 to 5 months, it just compiles of 2 phases, unlike ours, the adult, which is 4 to 5. But the 2 phases within our newborns is, first of all, rapid eye movement, and then the second, the deep sleep. Now, what's also interesting here is that some neuroscientists, that's why they say that rapid eye movement is more important, because that's what came first.
Right.
So definitely by 6 months, most babies are now on a sleep cycle of 1 hour.
Interesting.
And then again, but with those phases of stage 1, 2, and 3, and so on. And then as we age, so just going back to the question, sorry, I do.
No, the 8-hour myth about the golden number.
Now, the 8-hour myth, this is the maths. They just don't add up. We know that the sleep cycle for an adult is approximately 90 minutes. So it can't be 8 hours.
Yes.
And that's why we are either a 7-hour sleeper or a 9-hour sleeper. So, for example, I'm definitely a 7-hour sleeper. My husband is a 9-hour sleeper, probably 15. But my first daughter, who is now an adult, she is a 9-hour sleeper, just like her father. My second daughter, Melissa, is just like me, 7 hours. Interestingly, my youngest daughter would love to be 7 hours, but actually she's 9.
Okay.
So you are either a 7-hour or a 9 hour.
hours.
Now, something that I keep hearing, which is a little bit worrying, is that for us who sleep less than 7 hours, that does overall impact our cognitive function. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's not, again, scaremongering.
Right.
Because it's about quality as opposed to
Quantity.
Yeah.
When we cut back our sleep for whatever reason, I had a party or I had something to write or read about something, I have a presentation next day, and I say, okay, let me take 1 hour short or 2 hour short sleep. What happens to our memory focus and also our creativity next day?
So, like with all these answers when it comes to sleep, there are variables, and so for example, but there's quite a lot of studies now showing that the shorter hours of sleep during the weekend have less of an impact than the shorter hours that we have during the week. And that's because, for 2 reasons they're saying. So one is that we might be sleeping less, but actually, we're with our friends, we're with our family, we're eating really lovely food.
Dopamine release.
But less than dopamine, less stress. And therefore, we're sleeping better even though it's shorter. So the quality of sleep. And also, it's saying that, overall, we tend to have sex over the weekend, and we know that sex is really good for sleep, so therefore we sleep better. So if you're staying up late because you've got so much going on and you've got to do more work for your presentation, when you go to sleep that night, when you've shortened it by an hour or more, the quality of your sleep is going to be less because it's more, stress has played a very big impact. Yeah. Whereas if you shorten your sleep by an hour at the weekend because you've had fun, can you see how there is an...
this will encourage my teenager kids to party more, I guess. Yes. I might have to edit this before I show it to them. Right. What about... people have compared sleep deprivation to smoking and alcohol consumption. Is this scaremongering, or is it more of... it's true that there is the same effect?
Worse. There's a worse effect.
Okay.
Even if you look at... driving when you are sleep deprived is worse than when you've had alcohol. And the reason for that is because when you are sleep deprived, we have these micro sleeps. And so when you hit something, we have no reaction timing. With alcohol, for example, we can react, we're just slower. So that in itself will show you, and if we look at... Is this
proven? Is this something...
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Demographics and everything.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you've just got Chernobyl, for example.
Chernobyl, yeah.
If you look at many of the disasters, Chernobyl, the research is really clear that the 2 people that were on duty were sleep deprived, and that's what resulted in this terrible disaster. Yeah. If you look at, for example, there was a plane crash from India about 12, 15 years ago. In the black box, the captain was asleep. You could actually hear him snoring, and that's what led to the accident. So it's much worse. Yeah.
If you look at DVLA's data as well, as we know, there are 2 peaks of melatonin, the night peak, which is huge, and then there's small afternoon peak. Yeah. And most of the accidents happen at that time, 2 to 3 p.m., simply because everybody goes through that small melatonin peak. And I think, as you rightly said, sleep is a bigger determinant, or lack of sleep is a bigger determinant of accidents and events on the road rather than alcohol usage.
But for example, in Australia, doctors who have done a night shift in many areas in Australia, they actually pay for them to have taxis drive them home because it is so dangerous after they've been up, even though they're awake, because you have that, we find that, and throughout medicine, you've been up all night, but in the morning you're good to go, but you're not. So
security guards who do night shifts, for months and years sometimes, they tend to die sooner. And this is a fact, either due to a heart ailment or sudden stroke or whatever it may be. But there must be a reason for this, is it? Your arteries are clogged, your cholesterol level goes up. I'm sure this is a direct effect of that.
There are many, many reasons. If we're looking at the World Health Organization, for example, they have brought in a new factor looking at night shift workers, and there is an increased risk of them having cancer.
Yes.
So they have now added that to their stats.
Yeah.
we know that, just as an example, and there's many, many studies, like we know that if I was to sleep for 4 hours tonight, I know my anti-cancerous cells would drop by 70% tonight. So therefore, increasing if it's chronic. Now, again, it's not about frightening people because it's not about sound bites. That's not what this conversation is about. There was one night, for example, when I did sleep for 4 hours or less, and it was because I had a doctor who was giving up medicine to come and work with me.
Whoa.
Now, I thought that was an incredible responsibility of mine. And that night that he was flying from Canada, I kept thinking, oh my goodness, what happens if he's given up medicine? And, for him, this is not the right. I really felt the responsibility for this person. And I really just kept thinking about it. And I kept looking at the clock. And of course, a little bit of knowledge, or hopefully a lot of knowledge, but I kept thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting closer to that 4 hours, which I did. But then the next day, I did everything to ensure that I went to bed earlier that night. And also, not just that I went to bed earlier, but I looked at things that were really going to harness a deeper quality sleep.
If I were to say, look, Julie, my work entails me to do something which is, I don't get 8 hours of sleep at night, but during the day I sleep 8 hours. And I'm taking that box of 8 hours in every 24 hours, I get my sleep. Is there a difference between night sleep and day sleep?
A huge difference because we're looking at the human growth hormone. We're looking at the light-dark cycle. As humans, we are not supposed to be asleep during the day. As humans, we're supposed to be awake during the day and sleeping during the night. And our body is made, and our brain is made to sleep at night. There was a wonderful study that was carried out in the 1940s, but it's since been repeated a number of times. And again, this was really looking at the whole chronotype experience and literature. So they brought a group of people who were extremes of arcs and owls,
Yeah.
and some in between, so not just extremes. And they, had them in a cave for 2 weeks.
No light and no day-night differentiation.
None at all. And of course, no technology. And the outcome was actually really striking, that they weren't owls and they weren't larks. They really did. We generally got up with the sunrise and we slept with the sunset.
Without seeing the sun.
Without seeing it.
Light, yeah.
So they then thought, well, who can go for 2 whole weeks to a cave? This may not be, apparent in modern day world. So they took them for 4 days and the outcome was still the same.
Wow.
So we aren't supposed to be sleeping. The quality of our sleep is different.
Yes. Just tell me a little bit about people or pregnant women and athletes. How is sleep different for them, or sleep requirement different for them?
For pregnant women, hormonally, they go through huge changes and they need more sleep. Of course, they need more sleep because the baby is growing within them. And in order to support this healthy growth of the baby, they need more rest. So again, I think it's important not to put too much pressure on sleep. And there is so much pressure on our mothers. And so I will talk about rest. And if they can get rest, then that's going to help them sleep better. So certainly we know that with pregnant women, they do need more sleep. And that's because their quality of their sleep is poorer. So they're more likely to be woken during the night because they need to get up to go to the bathroom. Their core body temperature increases, which also impacts their sleep. So they definitely need more sleep. If we're looking at athletes for repair. So for example, there was a wonderful study with basketball players. And what it showed was that if they had a 9-minute nap, they increased their goal accuracy by 30%. And
so midday nap, you mean?
A midday nap.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
By 9 minutes, that's all.
That's all.
Which I believe is due to the sleep spindles in that first part of
because they will not even complete a cycle in those 9 minutes.
No. And again, if we're looking at the perfect nap, according to NASA, the perfect nap is 26 minutes.
Okay.
according to NASA.
That's
But
important to
again, again, we've got to see what works for us and timings of when that nap happens.
Now, this is not cultural, but it's one of the cultural questions that we come across very often, where the hustle culture glorifies sleeping less as people brag about it. And recently we had a millionaire from India, a billionaire, in fact. He is a huge entrepreneur who's been running a company called Infosys. He said, "Oh, I sleep only 4 hours." And, he was talking about life-work balance. And that's where he said, when I started my journey, I was only sleeping 4 hours a day. And what that does is a lot of people in their youth who are in the 20s and early 30s, they really get motivated by listening to that. And then they try to mimic that. And that's when it hits their health, right? So why is this hustle there? Why do we say that if I sleep less, I'm better than you because I'm functioning? He feels or she feels that I'm functioning at a high level by getting only 4 hours of sleep, whereas you need 8. You need to change. Why is that happening in the world?
I think in the world at the minute, we live in a world which is now there is no off. And we know when there is no off, that means our body, our brain is really struggling. So that's one of the things. With the introduction of technology, the world is always on. And again, competitiveness, I think it's just bringing more and more pressure and stress to the world. And I do believe it is that whole idea of, I'll sleep when I'm dead, but not really understanding the impact.
But I think that the day-night differentiation so if I'm in, say, a countryside in the UK, I know when it's day and when it's night. In Dubai, you don't.
No. And it's not even in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's the
Most of
world over.
Yeah.
The lights, whether you are in New York, the lights there. So we are, as a society, we are dark starved. That's what's happening.
Dark stuff. I think we should blame the guy who brought in the light bulb we talked about earlier.
I know, Thomas Edison. But if you look at, Margaret Thatcher, famously, 4 hours.
4
And of
hours.
course, Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes.
If we're looking at Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Steve Jobs.
Answer.
They, were very famous to say, I don't sleep. But thankfully, it is changing. And, there are also incredible millionaires. Arianna Huffington. Now, she did have to fall and break her cheekbone before she realized what was happening. But she's just the most incredible woman.
Yes.
She's now turned this around. And for example, she's just started a new company at the age of 74. And that's because she prioritizes her sleep.
Sleep now. So then there's this 5 a.m. club who say, I wake up at 5. No matter what time I sleep at night, I wake up at 5 because that's my peak of productivity. Is this just a social media jargon that we use, or there's some truth in this?
So when I do hear that about, I'm part of the 5 a.m. club, my brain immediately goes to, you're not getting enough rapid eye movement sleep. And when that is said to me, I will say, okay, so you think you might be losing perhaps 20% of your overall sleep. But actually, depending on your chronotype, you could be losing up to 80% of your rapid eye movement sleep. So that means your memory, your emotional regulation, there are so many things that have to be taken into consideration here. So it's not a blanket statement of you shouldn't get up at 5, but if it means that you are depriving your brain and your body of its total sleep quality, that's not healthy either.
So if you were hired to fix the employee's sleep in an organization, say, over 90 days, what's the first step you would take?
It has to be attainable and it has to be goal-focused we will start with one thing. So it's always too many changes that we're going to say, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I often say that 3 things are really, really critical for sleep. So the first thing will be that in the morning, when you wake up, I want you to get 3 minutes of light, natural light.
Go out.
Before you look at your phone. 3 minutes, that's all.
Okay.
3 minutes. We can all do that. And if you can't do 3 minutes, then I want you to do 2 minutes. If you can't do 2 minutes, because that is really good. Our sleep happens tonight from the minute we woke up this morning. And why the phone is so important, or the natural light is so important, is because if we look at our phone, and that's the first thing that we do, the blue light that comes off your phone is going to really put your body into stress. That's the first thing we do, because the blue light is telling your brain that it's 2:00 in the afternoon, even though it's only 6:30. So immediately your brain has gone to fight, fright, and flight. So that's why we want to look at our phone maybe 3 minutes after we've got up, after we've had that light. So light in the morning. The second thing is sleep is really dehydrating. So if we can have, ideally, 600 to 900 mils of
It's
water,
2 to
which is
3
quite,
glasses.
which I know is a lot, but start where you can. If you can have one glass, that's fine. But if you can just have some water, that's going to help with your overall sleep that
Room
night.
temperature.
Room
any
temperature, absolutely room temperature. And then the third thing is just do a little bit of movement. So a few stretches. So this isn't about yoga or a class, a few stretches, because when you do those few stretches in the morning, it sends a signal to your brain to start preparing the body to
For the
release
day.
its human growth hormone that night. So 3 very simple practices. Light, natural light, a little bit of water, and then a little bit of movement.
When I asked this question, I thought you were going to talk to me about how do you prepare yourself to sleep at night rather than the first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yes. I mean, when we give lectures, so I talk about sleep as well to doctors, for example. We always talk about how do we prepare ourselves to sleep? What's the routine before we sleep?
It's almost too late
What's
then.
the sleep?
Sorry.
That's interesting. Seriously.
Sorry.
My entire this thing has to change now. Idea. What about power naps? So you talked about this 26-minute sleep that is a very refreshing sleep that you can have in the afternoon. But do you believe in afternoon naps, like short 20 minutes bursts of sleep?
So again, it very much comes down to the individual.
Okay.
Because the timing, as you said, of the nap is really essential. If you were to have a nap late into the afternoon, then that can impact when you fall asleep at night. So we know that there's 2 mechanisms that we need for sleep. And without both of these mechanisms, we are not going to be able to sleep. So the first mechanism is our circadian rhythm, so light coming into the brain. And the second one is sleep pressure. Now, if you fall asleep and have an extended nap, or it's too late into the afternoon...
The adenosine, I think. The adenosine secretion.
Yeah, exactly. Then that's going to rob your body, rob your brain of sufficient sleep pressure. So when you are sleeping, when you need to go to bed at your usual time, you can't, because you haven't built up enough sleep pressure.
How much cultural pressure is there? For example, if you go to Spain, the siesta, and the Italy, for example, in some places, and Greece as well, people, everything shuts down. The shops are closed for 2 hours in the afternoon.
Yeah.
How does that change between 2 different cultures?
Now, do you know, I do hear this, and I have read this and I've seen the papers, but actually, the more and more I go to Europe, go to Spain and go to Greece, it's happening less. These siestas are happening less. And I do believe it is shifting how we are all operating. And so, yes, they are a late culture, but it is very much set
Have you been to
the
Portugal?
sunrise. Yes, I've been to Portugal.
So not Lisbon, as you know, that's a metropolitan city.
Yeah.
But if you go to towns around Portugal, it's still there.
Yeah.
They shut their shops for 2 hours, some for maybe for an hour.
Yeah.
They have their lunch, take their siesta, and then come back and open them again.
Yeah. No, but I think it's not as widespread.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So we can't be using that as a reference point for now, because it's happening less and less. And unfortunately, it is all about the culture of being on, unfortunately.
Yes.
Because, it is so competitive, this world. If, especially within industry, if Germany is awake, then we need to be awake here in the UAE to be as competitive.
True. I'm going to throw some cultural nuances at you. Like in China, if you do not snore, you're not a man. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay. So where did I hear this? This is a theme there in some of the villages, that when they go and look for an alliance for their daughter, they check if the man is actually snoring. Because the more you snore at night, the more manlier you are. It's a cultural thing that they have. Then in Italy, co-sleeping, as you know, for kids, it still goes on. It's pretty accepted.
Yeah.
And kids, even when they are 6, 7 years of age, they sleep on the same bed as their parents.
Yeah. But like, for example, with the snoring, we now know that maybe as many as 88% of people who are suffering with sleep apnea,
Yes.
it's undiagnosed.
Yeah.
And we know sleep apnea is so detrimental to every aspect of our health, whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, whether it's heart disease. We know that's what results in sleep apnea.
Yeah.
So we know that the snoring isn't harmless for most people.
Yes.
I mean, there's very few people that snoring. So that is absolutely something that we would debunk. Co-sleeping. Co-sleeping is also really interesting because lots will say, oh, you know, if you look at Japan, for example, Japan co-sleep, but they may co-sleep, but during the day, Japan is a very obedient society and there are lots of limits and boundaries put in place. So there's a nice balance. It's not, and it shouldn't be an either or. And the same, about 2 years ago now, in fact, it was 2 years ago, the recommendations when it comes to sleep, the Academy of Pediatrics, both in the States and in Europe, they changed their recommendation, which is the first time in a number of years. And that was to say that co-sleeping before the age of 1 is absolutely not safe. And they hadn't said that before.
Yes.
So it is about asking the question why. Why are we co-sleeping? If we're co-sleeping because our child is not sleeping, that's the only way that any of us get some sleep, then that's not a reason to continue co-sleeping.
Yeah.
So
When you talked about Japan, there's this concept of inemuri there, where if you see a person sleeping on a street, it's actually everybody's proud of that. They're like, oh, they're hardworking people. Unlike, say, in Europe, where it doesn't happen because people think it's shameful to lie down on a floor and sleep somewhere.
But Japan has one of the worst sleeps in the world in terms of, and also there is actually a condition that is put on the death certificate, and nowhere else in the world, died of sleeping, lack of sleep.
Because they have this strong hustle culture there, where they
do.
believe that you don't waste your time sleeping, do work.
Yeah.
So we do scroll. For example, when you wake up in the morning, you're on the toilet, people take their phones. And
You're saying that as if it's okay.
It's not. It's not. It's not. But it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening. That's why I'm saying it's okay. Because for people who are listening to us, it's like, I do it.
No.
Why is it wrong?
It's so wrong because think of our brain, and evolution moves really slowly. So we know, and they keep trying, all these huge phone companies, Apple and everything, who are just making billions out of. But we know that blue light that is coming off your phone is having an extremely detrimental effect to your brain. So when you wake up, if that's the first thing that you do to look at the screen, that blue light is misinforming the brain of the time that it is real time. So, and it then sets you up for the entire day of your sympathetic nervous system being triggered from the second you wake up in the morning. We are only supposed to be in that sympathetic state of fight, fright, and flight for perhaps 10% of our awake time. But now, because of stress, because of the phones, we are spending at least 7 to 8, and it's having if we look at the cancer rates, if you look at COVID, our immune system is absolutely destroyed because we're not sleeping.
When I give talks on sleep for pediatricians, we talk about 2 hours before bedtime, no screens for kids and all that. But in truth, even adults, even doctors for that matter, they scroll through reels or something before they go to bed because they say, it's one night, doesn't matter. But I think even that 5 minutes of exposure to a quick shift in screens does have an effect on your sleep, right?
It does, because it's not just about the blue light exposure. It's also about the content that is either stimulating,
dopamine releasing, and all that.
And if we look at teenagers, for example, there's some really wonderful studies now that are showing
on gaming.
How
is it?
Well, both on gaming and how it impacts their mental health. You know, just it seems harmless scrolling, but it actually impacts their whole hormonal system, which then impacts the quality of their sleep. And of course, with gaming and that dopamine. And so these reward centers, these cravings, you know, this isn't a feel-good hormone we're talking about. Dopamine is craving.
It's an addiction hormone.
It is, yeah.
So if there are many people who wear smartwatches when they go to sleep to check the quantity of their sleep. But of course, it doesn't give you an indication of the quality of his sleep. What's your take on this?
I think that the trackers can be beneficial, but only for showing us patterns. So, for example, if you wear it for a 2-week period, and I think that's really helpful, you wear it for 2 weeks and have a break and then wear it again. If you wear it for 2 weeks and you see that maybe on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night, typically your sleep quality has been reduced, that gives you the information that you can look back and say, okay, so why is that? It's always about asking the why. Now, with these trackers, we know that the gold standard for our, for letting us know whether we have sufficient rapid eye movement and deep sleep has got to be the polysomnography, where you go into a hospital setting and you have millions of these,
Electrodes
placed on your head.
Yeah.
And that in itself can tell you that this one thing here cannot be the equivalent. So polysomnography, and it just tells us how still you have been. So it cannot, certainly at the minute, it cannot tell you how much deep sleep you've had. And if I'm dealing even with a teenager or an adult, I will say to them that they are not allowed, which sounds very controlling, but they are not allowed to look at their watch until after breakfast, because then they can take that information and they can make sense of what they've, rather than if I've woken up and the first thing I look at and see that it's saying you've had a poor night's sleep, I think, I thought I had a really good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And it sets the tone for the day. We don't need a watch to tell us.
It's how you feel. Let's talk some lifestyle choices. People eating late at night. How does that affect sleep?
Hugely.
Yeah.
So it affects sleep. So in order to have a good quality sleep, our core body temperature needs to drop.
Yes.
Now, when we are eating meals late at night, it ramps up your core body temperature. So it's in absolute conflict with our biological clock. So melatonin, the release of melatonin, that really important hormone, is now really dysregulated, disrupted. It doesn't know what time it is because of the food going in. Very often as well, the type of food that we're eating late at night is not the best quality. So it's fatty food, which is going to, again, disrupt our sleep. It's high in sugar, which of course is now going to cause, glucose crashes throughout the night. So if we're looking at the recommendations, and again, we're all different, but not that different. The recommendations are that if we're having, say, grilled fish and some grilled vegetables, we can have that 2 hours before we sleep. But if we're having something like pasta or something carbohydrates and heavy, then we need at least 3 hours from finishing that meal before we go to sleep. Now, what I've had recently, and it seems to be a pattern, I've had people that are doing intermittent fasting, which I think can be really beneficial. But I feel that quite a few adults now are going to sleep hungry because they're following the intermittent fasting. And so, again, I'm wanting to work with my clients and respecting, what their goals are. And I will often recommend that they have 1 teaspoon of honey, because honey really does stabilize our blood glucose, and that can just improve the quality of your sleep. Yes, at night.
Okay.
But 1 teaspoon of honey.
What about exercising before sleeping? So adrenaline and...
Yeah. Now, again, we're getting lots of mixed data here. There's lots of reference to, like, for example, my chronotype is that of an owl. And so if I exercise in the evening, it doesn't really impact my sleep. Whereas my daughter, for example, who is a lark, if she was to exercise too late into the evening, again, it ramps up her core body temperature and therefore it impacts her sleep. So it's really about knowing. Yeah, it is.
Shower before bed, hot shower, cold shower, any recommendation?
Hot shower is great because then when you step out of the shower, your core body temperature drops. Now, we only need it to drop by 0.5 degree, that's all. And then that signals to the brain that sleep is coming soon. So absolutely a hot shower.
Okay. Just tell us a little bit about kids. Now, this is something I talk about a lot, but I want to hear it from you. For parents among our audiences here, how chronic deprivation of sleep affects kids, not just psychologically, but also physically?
We could be here all day looking at the impact.
Give me maybe top three.
So
detrimental
behavioural,
effects. Okay.
absolutely
Yeah.
behavioural. And this is where...
And wrongly diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh, I was just about to say to you
Yeah.
that parents will come to me and they have children on melatonin. It's not, it's behavioural. So we want to look at, so for example, I had one child who was 10 years of age. He's never ever slept independently. He's always had disruptive night sleep. And the parents were thinking there was something wrong. And so they went to the doctors first to see if there was anything wrong. And the doctor put this young boy of 10 on 5 milligrams of melatonin. Now, I know from having the discussion with the parents that this is a behavioural problem. This is not a medical problem.
Yes.
And it's always about looking at behavioural issues and then looking to see if there is
Absolutely.
something medical.
Yep.
And 5 milligrams for a child of 10 is completely inaccurate in its dose, because we know that the adult brain needs as little as 0.5 to initiate sleep.
And in kids, we've done the studies where
Yeah.
we know whether you give 5 or 1, the effect is the same
Yeah.
in a child. So I don't know why many pediatricians prescribe high doses for kids. But
But definitely behavior,
Yeah.
learning,
learning, yeah.
growth. Growth is actually impacted,
Mm-hmm.
but growth of the brain is impacted because the biological clock is not allowed to support healthy growth.
Yes. What about sleep divorce? Sounds dramatic. Not many people would have heard of this. But what is it really?
So I think it needs rebranding.
Rebranding? Okay.
Yeah, it should be Sleep Alliance.
Sleep alliance, not
Yeah.
sleep divorce. Tell me
Yeah.
what is it first of all?
And, sleep divorce is really, some people think, and the studies, looked into, can this reduce intimacy? Actually, not at all.
Okay.
And, we're all different, and it might be that your partner might be snoring, which is disrupting your sleep. If your partner is snoring and disrupting your sleep, then that impacts how you work together. You're more irritable with him, because generally it's the males that are snoring. But it's actually harnessing your relationship. So I do believe it should be not sleep divorce, it should be sleep alliance. And, there's certain celebrities now that have said, quite openly that that's how they are operating. But even if you look back through history, royalty, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, they never slept together.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But, so historically, this has gone on forever, for centuries.
Yes. And the same thing, the question boils down to night owls and early birds, the larks. And if you're married to each other, how do you match your chronotypes?
Well, that's really interesting as well, because, what the research is showing is if you go against your biological clock, that is more detrimental than trying to change it.
Okay.
So you can still, you can have your meal times together. You can look for those anchoring elements, such as meal times, such as getting up early. So it is better to work with your own biological clock,
Yeah.
but it's also worth recognizing that our chronotype changes throughout our lifetime.
Yes.
When you've got children, it doesn't matter what your chronotype is. You have to get up early.
Some fascinating facts about sleep phenomena. Sleepwalking. Why do people sleepwalk?
Again, that's our non-rapid eye movement. That's when the sleepwalking takes place. And it's a lot of the time is due to neural activity and there's stress somewhere. There is stress somewhere. So that's one of the biggest reasons.
Yeah. And chronic sleep deprivation, I know it doesn't cause dementia, but does it contribute towards dementia and memory loss in older
There are
age?
some studies actually that are now showing causation.
Causation?
That are showing causation. So again, when we go to sleep at night, all those toxins, which is the tau toxin, and the beta amyloid. So they are built up during the day. Now, when we go to sleep at night, again, it's that housekeeping. Those are removed at night. So it's almost like plaque is forming on our
every
brain,
night.
and we need to release it. So there is a buildup, and that's what they're seeing in the research, that there is a buildup of these toxins, which then leads to dementia and Alzheimer's.
Interesting.
So it is, there are more and more studies now showing causation.
Right.
It's not the only one. Of course, diet and different things is also having an impact. Now, one more thing here. You know, your grandmother would have said to you, or your grandfather, not being sexist, but they would have said to you, an hour before midnight is worth 3 hours after. This is where it's really interesting, because we know that the removal of those toxins,
Non-REM sleep,
the lymphatic, is in the first half of the night. So if we are going to bed later and later, then we're missing out. We're reducing the amount of activity for removing all those toxins. And that's why we are seeing so much more, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia.
On a positive note, can meditation or things like mindfulness help reshape how we sleep?
And again, very interesting. So Matthew Walker, who was the first person actually that to try and make sleep sexy, the first person. But for many, many years, he said, you know, I'm a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
This is all woohoo, mindfulness. But he's over a period of time, he said the evidence was so compelling that he was forced to have a look. And the evidence is really clear how significant mindfulness and meditation can really support deeper sleep. So
any time scales, like before you go to bed, 2 hours before bed, when should that process of meditation take place?
Both. It can be both.
Okay.
So it can be helpful if you have a racing mind, and if you get into the practice of just before you go to sleep of calming your brain down, that is going to support better sleep. But also it's about wanting to participate in an activity that is not going to bring you extra stress, because again, like these trackers, it's causing anxiety. But if we then think, I've got to meditate before I go to sleep,
You won't fall asleep. Yeah.
So
the more you think about it.
yeah.
What I'm going to do is throw some rapid fire questions at you.
Dear.
So this one is tricky.
Okay.
There's no thinking here.
Okay.
It's just your instinct. I want you to throw the answers back at me using your reptilian brain.
Okay.
Do not use your forebrain or your frontal lobe. You, early bird or night owl?
Would I prefer or?
What are you, first of all?
Oh, I'm a night owl. Night owl.
What would you recommend or hope your client is?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
No. It's
Okay.
what's... Although that's not quite true, because we know the science is telling us that night owls, overall, they tend to live shorter lives.
Yes. What about the weirdest place you've fallen asleep?
I suppose on a plane, because it's a million...
But that's not weird, is it? We all sleep on
Well, it
flights.
is, because the brain isn't safe. How can the brain work all those... So I think...
Not on a scooter or
No.
on a motorbike, nothing? Out of
No.
Oh, interesting. Do you think the productivity gurus, the hustlers, or you who motivate you to be a hustler, they help sleep or they ruin it?
Ruin sleep.
Okay.
Absolutely ruin it.
One sleep myth you would ban forever?
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Okay. Right. So it's the same thing with hustle culture.
Yeah.
Dream guest you would love to talk to about sleep?
A dream guest.
Yeah. And they cannot be scientists like Matthew Walker. Think about someone else, maybe a celebrity.
Ariana Huffington.
Ariana Huffington? Okay.
Yeah.
Power nap, 20 minutes, or take a 20-minute power nap, or just push through?
Oh, absolutely not push through. 20-minute power nap can be so advantageous. And then, of course, we've got the nappuccino.
Right, yes. Perfect night's sleep in one sentence. What is a perfect night's sleep?
When you wake up feeling rested.
Okay. Very simple, very easy to do, easy to feel. Hot shower or cold rinse before bed?
Hot shower.
Hot shower. I got that answer earlier. Brilliant. Julie, that was fantastic. Very insightful, fun, and a little bit terrifying at times. And I realized a few things that I'm doing wrong, and I'm going to correct them. I think the audience are going to pick a lot of things from this and implement this in their life. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really want to help everyone understand that sleep is not boring. It is so exciting. The best thing we can do, best gift that we can give anyone.
33% of our life is sleep.
Yep.
So we have to think about it. At least people should start thinking about it once they have seen this podcast. And if we've done that, we've achieved a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.